Casinos have played a big part in economic revitalization of Indian communities in Minnesota. There are 20 Indian-operated casinos in Minnesota to Minnesota's 11 Indian reservations. Needless to say, casinos are a huge business in the state of Minnesota. They pull in approximately $1.5 billion a year. This revenue has gone to funding Indian colleges, revitalization projects, per capita payments, and other helpful things for Indian tribes. This $1.5 billion does not only help Indian tribes, it also helps out everyone in the community. For example, Indian tribes played a big role in providing money to Target Field and TCF Bank Stadium, and other sporting projects are currently being talked about in the future. Why can Indian reservations have casinos in Minnesota? One of the more recent propositions is the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. This act, signed by President Reagan, designated that while tribes are sovereign, the state can regulate gaming on their casinos. We decided to find out what Minnesotans really know about casinos and economic revitalization in their neighboring tribal communities.
When I ask you to describe Native American culture, or you can even say a certain word, what comes to mind?
Indian reservation, feather.
Indian and feathers, headdresses.
TP.
A lot of different reservations in Minnesota, I'd say. Casinos, typical thing that they're associated with. And you know, the typical Native American type symbols.
Can you name some reservations in Minnesota?
I know there's a couple on the lakes, like Mille Lacs and Red Lake, and then those are the only two that I know.
Geez, Mystic Lake.
Which percentage of reservations in Minnesota do you think have casinos operating on them?
I would probably say 80%.
Yeah, I don't know.
30%.
In your point of view, do you think the casino revenue goes?
Tobacco?
Gee, I don't know.
No idea?
Nope.
Well, to the government, because there's definitely a lot of taxes on it, and then back to the reservations, and they probably do with what they want with it.
Reservations.
Okay.
I'd hope.
If I was to tell you that most of the money goes to revitalization, can you tell me any major projects that you can think of, perhaps 500 feet away from where we're standing?
Probably some sort of monument,
Okay.
you know, in remembrance, or I don't know, for some reason.
I would have no idea.
500 feet? No, I don't believe so.
If I was to tell you that the Shakopee and Sioux community donated $10 million to the stadium construction, would you be surprised?
That's really cool. I'm not surprised, but awesome.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There you saw some typical misconceptions regarding American Indians in casinos. Now we will interview someone with an educated background on Indians, Dr. St. Clair.
Can you tell me what you know of where most of the casino revenues go towards, and what kind of projects that you know of that you can name?
Mm-hmm. Well, it really varies because each tribe is sovereign. Each tribe has the ability, the responsibility to decide what they were going to do with their revenues. So some tribes put all of their money into kind of infrastructure, so maybe they build a hospital or a clinic, they build a school, they buy back land, they invest in other economic development opportunities, language and culture revitalization. Some tribes give away, have assistance for schooling, and some tribes give away, they give per capita distributions, which means that each individual gets sort of a portion of the profits. And so tribes vary, and many tribes do many or all of those things.
What are some stereotypes or misconceptions that you personally have heard of or know about?
Sort of this kind of economic stereotype. That once again, they're kind of poor and they're rich. There's this belief that all Native people are poor, but there's also this conflicting belief at the same time that they're rich.
Can you tell us now what the Natives think who live on the reservations, what their point of view on the casino is, if they think it's leading to culture loss or anything like that?
Well, I would say, firstly, I can't speak for all Native people. Much of what gaming has brought to indigenous communities has been good, I would say. It's a source of revenue that really didn't exist in my father's day. One thing that gaming provides is employment for people in the community that never existed before. Now, it doesn't only provide employment for Native people. In fact, I think if you were to look at most casinos, you will find that non-Native people by far get the benefits of the casino employment over Native people. That in terms of numbers and percentages, lots and lots of non-Native people get jobs at casinos. So there's also other kinds of economic booms to that off-reservation community. Restaurants and hotels and other kinds of things happen as well. So, I mean, I think that there are many benefits. One being, a lot of Native communities didn't have kind of basic infrastructure, paved roads, phones, sewer systems, their own school systems, tribal newspapers, clinics, a way to get health care. That a lot of those things all came about through economic development, like gaming.
Casinos have helped raise money towards revitalization in many ways, but they've also hurt revitalization. Some of the good effects on revitalization include improvements to infrastructure, the creation of jobs, and lowering unemployment rates. Some unemployment rates have dropped from 50 to 20% in many communities in just a few years. Investment in the community through the funding of stadiums and other things, language immersion schools, building of Indian colleges and schools, per capita payments to assist with poverty issues, and health insurance plans and the building of hospitals. Some of the negative effects of casinos on reservations include gambling addictions, bad reputations and misconceptions, drug and alcohol abuse, increased crime rates, a focus on money rather than community, and a loss of culture. It is Native American sovereignty and the guarantee of the exclusive right to regulate gaming activity on Indian lands that is the basis for the existence of Indian gaming in the U.S. However, this sovereignty is subject to strict congressional authority, and the position of Native Americans was weakened by the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, or the IGRA. The IGRA was passed in 1988, which set rules and regulations to Indian gaming. The IGRA allowed criminal prohibitory laws to be applied to reservation. Gaming compacts between tribes and states can be described as economic racism, as they are a breach of sovereignty. Congress contradicts itself by saying that states that allow gaming should not be allowed to regulate it. States have wanted regulations, enforcement, and taxation, but do not feel they have the responsibility to tribes for their health, welfare, or economic development. As of 2008, nationwide Indian gaming has generated 712,000 jobs, $27 billion in wages, $10.8 billion in federal, state, and local taxes, and $1.6 billion in direct payments to federal, state, and local governments.
The history of the Dakota and Ojibwe peoples include important facts and stories of the people who lived and loved this land long before white settlers arrived. However, the startling atrocities committed against Minnesota's natives do not seem to be taught in Minnesota schools. In fact, very little seems to be said of natives at all. We asked around and discovered that the lack of knowledge was somewhat alarming. We went to Community Partners with Youth, an after-school program in New Brighton, to hear what some of Minnesota's youngest residents had to say.
I'm Kenty and I'm 10 years old. My name is Erica Inez and I'm 10 years old. Like, they used to kind of run Minnesota until the European and African Americans came, and that they run the state and that's all I really know. Well, I think I did, but I really don't remember, no. I heard of it, but I forgot what it was.
After we got input from some youth, it was time to hear what adults had to say. We went to Kaufman Union at the University of Minnesota to hear what some of the state's best and brightest knew about Native history. Here's who we met.
My name is Nathan. I grew up in Forest Lake. I am 18 years old and my major is environmental science. I'm a freshman.
My name is Terry Henn. I grew up on Long Island in New York.
I'm Brianna Ives. I'm 19. I'm from Minneapolis.
My name is Kane and I'm 25 and I'm from St. Paul.
I'm Tomas Giorgio and I grew up here in the Twin Cities.
I'm Brian Comiskey. I'm 19. I also grew up here in the Twin Cities.
I'm Josephine. I'm from Brookfield, Wisconsin. I'll be coming to Minnesota in the fall.
There was a battle there, and yeah, that's all I know.
Used to be a military base kind of thing, and I don't know, now it's like a museum.
Sort of a famous local monument, that's about it.
I don't know anything about personally.
They housed a ton of, they had like a camp of Native Americans, basically, that they pushed off their land. So.
I've been to the Ramsey house, but I was there when I was 11, so I couldn't tell you anything that I heard there.
Heard the name, but I don't know.
I've heard the name. I could not say who he was.
No, it's a school.
No, I'm sorry.
I've never heard that name.
There's also, okay. Bad idea, no.
Not a whole lot, yeah, really. We learned about Thanksgiving and, you know, the Indians and the Pilgrims, and that's probably the limit of what they taught back then.
Most of what I learned about Native Americans was in elementary school. And that's just like basic, I guess, Pilgrims and Indians, and like Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
I didn't learn too much until senior year when I read a book by Louise Verdrich, Love Medicine, and then I don't know, it was sort of offhand knowledge learned through the novel, so not necessarily anything, I guess, of tangible use.
Pretty much the bare minimum. Couldn't tell you.
I don't think I've learned about the Indians since Thanksgiving in like 2nd grade.
Why are so many people underinformed about their own history? Is it misrepresented in Minnesota school systems? Is it hidden from us by the government? Or are we just blind? Now that we are aware that we are unaware, it's time to start looking at how to rethink and reframe our own history. We can do this by discussing issues and spreading the knowledge of the injustice that exists in Minnesota today. Waziatowin, a Dakota woman of Minnesota, argues that a lack of education, or even miseducation, means that adult citizens in the state cannot conceive justice for Dakota people because they do not even recognize the injustice. So it is only after we begin to understand the injustice that exists that we can begin to look for justice itself, and that process starts with critically reevaluating